here. My goodness.
It's crazy.
Wow, that's amazing. What a great experience for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Austin.
The new professionals luncheon.
This is worth the price of admission just to see y'all up on the screen.
I'm so excited. I got deep 2017 vibes right now. I'm feeling great. Man, it's taking me back right now. My goodness.
Like Cochran.
Oh, someone's in trouble. Oh man.
It's an Alexa.
Yeah. Hey, long time no see, everyone.
How's it going, Hannah?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good.
What other presentations have y'all hopped in today?
Reacting just general. I went to Sarah's earlier.
Okay.
Yeah,
everything new hire.
Yeah, I've been had been a good conference goer today. I've had a lot of housekeeping stuff going on around here. We got advising and APR meetings next week with football. Also trying to make sure I got my numbers straight because the coach is gonna want to know exactly who we lost on, and so I'm trying to make sure I got those details correct. So I hadn't been a great attendee today. It's a lot better when I can get down there in person and get away from everything. But yeah, I haven't done a great job so far today. Hannah, I hope you've hopped on one or two.
Yeah, I was able to go to the one that Sarah did. It was so great. She's such a great presenter too. And I kind of was late to one of the 9:45 ones. Oh, defining your purpose, understanding your why. Amazing. If y'all can go recording of it, definitely do it. All right, well, while we wait for Alexa to join, I'll just go over who our panelists will be, and then as well as how we'll filter questions. So for questions, I have a series of questions that I will ask the panelists, and they'll answer, and I'll allow you all to kind of chime in or ask any questions that you have after they answer. Just make sure you're using the raise hand feature as the reaction so that we'll know to call on you. And then you can put your questions in the chat as well. So for the panelists today, we have Brad Jones, who is the manager of our student support services and math specialist here at LSU, who is a former graduate assistant here. We have Dedrick Ford, who's a learning specialist here. Don't know the sports. I know football is one of his sports that he works with, and he was a graduate assistant here as well. Austin Knight, who is the assistant athletic director for the academic support services at Southeastern Louisiana University. Line up. And and Alexa Webb, who will be joining us. She is the assistant director for Ohio State University. All right. So if you don't mind, just kind of introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your graduate experience here at LSU, and what was kind of the most valuable aspect of it to your current role. And we'll start with Brad.
Gotcha. Letting the old man go first. I appreciate that seniority there. So my experience here, my initial experience started, I was a math tutor at the University of Florida from 2009 to 2012. And I didn't even know that this was a field, honestly, tutoring student athletes. And so that was a really eye-opening experience for me. I was teaching high school during the day and then tutoring the student athletes at night. And then when I came back to LSU in 2012 to start my PhD in math, that's how I knew, one, that these positions existed, and two, that there may be a graduate assistantship available in this building. So I Googled LSU athletics academics. The first name that I saw was Carol Walker. So I reached out to her. And through that conversation, I got to interview as a tutorial graduate assistant. Thankfully, I got that. And as I was a tutorial GA, I kept noticing that there was a hole in how we helped our student athletes in math. And so as I worked there, I kind of transitioned from a tutorial graduate assistant to a math GA. So it was the first time that we had had a content specific graduate assistant. So the math GA allowed me to spend more of my time on math. And then from there, my boss at the time, Kenneth Miles, created the math specialist position here at LSU. So I transitioned from that math tutorial GA to math GA to math specialist. And thankfully, when I did that, the math GA position was still there. And we've actually been able to add on a total of 5 content GA positions with our tutorial, our 5 heaviest hitters. So a lot of business, econ, accounting, finance, kinesiology, and then math are 5 GAs. And so I've been the math specialist since 2016, 2015, 2016. And then from there have kind of moved up to oversee now our entire tutorial center, our tutorial coordinator, all of our GAs. And then I'm starting to adopt our reading specialist program as well with Roar.
Thanks, Brad. I'm going to jump to Macy Richardson because I forgot to introduce her. She is at the University of Minnesota as a academic advisor. So Macy, if you could give us a little bit of your background of your graduate assistantship experience and what was the most valuable aspect of it and how it's pertaining to your career now. And if I got that wrong, please correct me.
Oh, no, you're right. You're good. So I got into my graduate assistantship from first being an intern. So I was in the, I forgot what it was called, this career class at LSU. I think it was like in 2513 or something like that. And they had speakers and they had Jason and I think it was Jerrica was actually there speaking. And then I was like, oh, this seems cool. This is like a good opportunity to like get into sports somehow. And like, I like academics. So I got Jason's information. And from there, I think I just emailed him. And then from there, I started interning with Jade Bryan and Kirsten DeFusco, and they kind of gave me the first opportunity. So I interned with them. And then from there, I kept working until I decided to get my master's. So then that's how I got into my graduate assistantship. And I've kind of just stayed under those 2 advisors. The advisors kind of switched up, but I stayed under the advisors for those sports. I think my most valuable experience for my graduate assistantship was probably just the staff that I worked with was very valuable and helpful in all aspects, and just working with the staff and just the opportunities that I was given in my graduate assistantship. I think it was very kind of like, I want to say 1 in a million chance, because not a lot of GAs got put in the opportunities that I was able to get put into and kind of fulfill that advisor role for the short time I did. So I think that was probably my most valuable and really helped prepare me for the job I am in now. I don't think I would do as successful if I didn't have that opportunity of kind of being an academic advisor for like 3 sports or 4 sports or whatever I had for that short period of time that I had. And I think it really helped me in the job that I am now. And then, did I answer all of that?
Yeah. And I'm going to segue into Dedrick. Since you were an intern, you helped Dedrick out in learning support. So I think that'd be a good segue. So Dedrick, if you can just kind of explain to us how your graduate assistant experience contributes to your career now.
Hello, everyone. And again, welcome. Thank you all for spending some time with us. We're very happy and excited for you all to, be engaged with us, and hopefully you all will ask some questions and some stuff that will, hopefully you can get something out of this. And so Yes, I had the wonderful opportunity to have Macy as my intern. And so one of the things that I think you'll hear and sort of be probably one of the themes as we go throughout, this talk is just understanding how to branch out and leverage different opportunities that you maybe wouldn't never see. And I think that's sort of been how my career as well has also sort of gone. I went to Auburn, started there, thought I was gonna play football, tore both my ACLs. My orthopedic surgeon wouldn't clear me, so that turned into, again, what am I going to do? Where do I go from here? And so then I actually got to be a part of the athletic training staff for Auburn football. Did that almost my entire undergrad. That led me to some internship opportunities in internal operations and event management at Auburn. And then ultimately, I went and got my master's in counseling. When I was doing that program, I was working with our player development program with the football team as well. And from that really gave me the desire to want to work, continue to work and research Black male students. And so that led me to wanting to pursue a PhD here at LSU. And Brad sort of mentioned reaching out to Carol. Well, I actually reached out to Brad during my, I was looking for a graduate assistantship. And Brad, I was like, let me look, he looks cool. So let me reach out to him. And thankfully, he responded and, connected me. And we sort of went from there. I came down, I think I met Alexa and another guy who was working at the time. And from there, I started as a GA, and then we had an opportunity that come open as a learning specialist in December of 2016. And so I took that opportunity. And ever since then, I've been working with our football team, our beach volleyball team, and our indoor volleyball team. But again, I would just say those opportunities that you never really foresee coming has led me sort of into this path and this field, and something I enjoy working with our students in their skill development, and something that I continue to see myself, developing and learning from. So.
Thanks, Dedrick. So Austin, you're next. If you would like to share with us how your graduate experience has helped you move up and climb up pretty quickly there too. So if you want to touch on that, please do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I shout out tutorial, started out as an intern in tutorial for my senior year in the sport admin program. And then I transitioned down my first year of grad school. I had a class that required you to have a practicum. And I really was fascinated by the academic affairs side of things. So I found a wonderful advisor downstairs in the academic center who took me on as a practicum student. And from there, again, like Dedrick talked about, opportunities opening up, the GA for that advisor, and Kirsten that Macy had mentioned, she was graduating, so I slipped right into that role. And I had a truly incredible experience there. I could spend this whole session just talking about how much I enjoyed it, so I promise I won't do that. But it was incredible for me. It really benefited me a lot. I think the two biggest things, looking back, really, I tried to put it into words, what was the most valuable about it. And what I kept coming back to was just the value of being involved. And as a graduate assistant, you're in a really, really unique position to where you aren't a full-time staff member, but you can have a very significant impact on the athletic department as a whole. Even at somewhere as big as an LSU, I really feel like as a GA, I wasn't given busy work. I was doing things that were legitimately important. One of the things that comes to mind is recruiting tours, because in college athletics, it's all about the student athletes that you bring in. And I was able to, first off, of course, follow along on some tours, and then kind of chip in with my little high points to fill in from what Ashley and Kirsten were saying. And then finally, I was leading tours myself, and I felt really, really involved in the process of recruiting and just contributing to the overall goals of the academic center. The other thing about that is it showed me how important it is to be willing to do the extra work. And as a GA, I know we have the 20 hours a week, which of course is very important to be able to balance everything. But there were some weeks where there would be so much going on in the academic center, I would see myself going past that. But it was important to me to show them that I was very interested in what I was doing. I was very, very willing to do the extra work. And there would be times where you might kind of look around and most everybody else is going home, but you're doing some of that legwork that's still happening. And I know that that wasn't required of me. At any point, I could have left and they would have supported me 100%, but I wanted to show them how much it meant to me. And after one of our conferences, somebody mentioned Ken Miles. He was definitely a larger than life presence. And after one of our conferences, he'd come up to me and said, "Hey man, I heard you've been working hard and doing a good job around here." And it got back to me and I really appreciate that. So I look back on that moment again as somebody taking the time to acknowledge me as a GA. Not that I wasn't acknowledged, for sure. My supervisors were incredible, but the guy at the top, literally, of the academic center to go over and, tell me that I've been working hard. So I think that's the main thing that I brought with me into this job, is that willingness to be involved in different stuff. I'm currently the advisor for SAC. I sit on a couple of different committees, just wanting to do that extra stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into your job description. And of course, we'll talk a little later about work-life balance and all. That's very, very important. But being willing to go above and beyond to prove like, hey, I'm dedicated. This is a very unique field. It requires a lot sometimes, but showing that you're willing to dive into that head first. And then of course, having the staff at Cox, who was so wonderful, is making us as GAs feel included, involved, important, and appreciated. It had a really big impact on me going forward, and I still use the things I learned there really every single day, for sure.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Alexa, you're up next. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how your graduate assistantship experience was most valuable in bringing into your new career as an assistant director at Ohio State working with football.
Sure thing. So good afternoon, everybody. Let me apologize for my tardiness, had some technological issues, but I'm here now, better late than never, right? So my graduate assistantship experience, I think it was amazing. We had an all-star class when we were at LSU at Cox, had an amazing, amazing time. And as said by some of the previous people in the room, I think what was most valuable was the type of work that I was given. I believe Austin said it was not busy work. You can ask Miss Carol, Miss Walker, or Kirsten, like they would say I was basically a full-time professional by the time I was finished my graduate assistantship. And so I was meeting with students, I was going to coaches meetings, sitting in on recruiting meetings and giving those tours, advising, letting the students, they were coming to me for advising appointments. They didn't have to go to Miss Walker. And so she trusted me with a lot of responsibility. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, is that I got to do the work of a full-time professional as a graduate assistant. And then I think the next most valuable thing is the network that I was able to build. Some people have told me, LSU is full of a bunch of heavy hitters, and that definitely held weight when I was applying for my first full-time positions. Having the people, it's not all about who it's who knows you, and people were able to advocate for me. But I think what matters is the work that you put in, so that, they're going to vouch for you and they're going to advocate for you, but then you have to back it up. You have to be able to bring a lot to the table and back up everything that somebody has said about you, or else it looks bad on you and it looks bad on the person that that advocated for you and made that call for you when you're, ready for a full-time position. So I'd say the type of work that I did and the network that I was able to build, I carry that network with me. I think Walt Holliday says it best. It's how you can make your net work. You got to make it work for you. And that's, took plenty of nuggets from Walt and Ken when I was there. So I think that's what was most valuable for me.
Yes, that was great. So my next question for you all, I'm not going to call on anyone, but if you have an answer to this, just feel free to jump in for my panelists. What career advice would you give your younger GA self? So for the GAs out there that are currently job hunting and kind of deciding if they want to stay in this career, kind of go into the learning support side or the academic affairs side, what kind of advice would you give your younger GA self?
I'll jump in there. It's kind of an overused phrase in sports now. It's become kind of cliche, but I would tell young Austin, just trust the process, man. It's hard to do at times. I think we get so caught up in finding that opportunity. We want to find the perfect job. I have to job search. I have to look. I'm scouring M4A and higher ed jobs. Like I have to find. When in reality, I think Alexa made a really good point about the opportunity that you have at the time, fully investing in that and making the most of that. And that's really important to me. More than finding the opportunity is preparing yourself for the opportunity. Because a lot of times, if you're doing the legwork, if you're doing everything you can to improve yourself and to show the people you're around every day that you're committed and willing to work hard, a lot of times the opportunity, I know this isn't a lot of something that's very actionable as a future GA, me telling you to just wait and let it come to you. But it is something that a lot of times things people told me throughout my job search process, it'll just work out. And it would make me want to pull my hair out because I'm like, no, I need action steps. I need what I need to do. And they're like, trust me, things will work out if you do things the right way. And I'm a firm believer in that. Dedrick talked about opportunities. The compliance guy at Southeastern, where I'm at now, happened to be sitting on the hiring committee for this position, or actually the academic counselor position I was originally hired in. And he and Dedrick knew each other from years before. And that was just one of those small world situations. But again, investing in my time at LSU, Dedrick had worked with me and he knew that I was somebody who was willing to do the work going forward. And he was willing to put that good word in for me, which again, as Alexa said, had I changed my outlook and come into this lackadaisical, that would have reflected very poorly on me and Dedrick. So when somebody goes out on a limb like that for you and puts that word in and they help you find that opportunity that you're searching for, it's very important to follow up. But yeah, just really trust it, put in the time, put in the work, and the opportunities out there. Focus more on the now and what you can control, and the future will work itself out.
Awesome, thanks, Austin. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
I can chime in. I would say I would definitely agree with Austin. I feel like the right job I would probably tell myself the right job will work out for you. I know in my sense, I would never thought I would be up north at the University of Minnesota in the negative 20-degree cold, but it just worked out that way because I originally interviewed for this position back in February and then COVID happened and I heard nothing. And I was like, okay, I didn't get it. So I just kept applying for jobs and like I kept working at Cox and my plan was to probably stay at Cox until I found a job. And that I was planning on staying at Cox till like I plan to still be at Cox right now. So I didn't think this was going to work out at all, but I just like trusted in that, just like trusted in my abilities, trust in your abilities and the skills that you have been taught when you are a GA and the skills that you have learned and kind of trust in that and the interview skills and everything really, and everything will work itself out. I think also in the networks, trust in the networks that you built while you're a GA and help build that networks, like branch out to different departments to where you work. Don't just go under your supervisor, like branch out into like how I was an intern with Dedrick and I wanted to do more in tutorial and study hall and not just work in academic affairs. So just make sure you're kind of diving into all different departments because that also helps build your network within just the little department that you're in. So I think just the right job will find you, trust me, and it will all work out in the end on the right place you'll be. And I feel like you'll have that feeling within yourself, be like, okay, this is the right job for me. This is where I'm supposed to be. And you'll just know it once you're in the interview, when you're doing all the interviews, you'll kind of have that feeling of like, this is the job that I need to be in. And this is the right fit for me.
Thank you. I do have a question kind of for Brad. I kind of want you to speak on kind of creating your own within where you were, because you kind of touched on how you started off as a tutor and graduate assistant and now a math specialist and now the manager as well. So just kind of what that looked like and what your journey looked like and how to negotiate or bring that to the forefront to your supervisors or people there within the department.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, what it comes down to is I would just tell all of y'all, keep your eyes open. And what I mean by that is, your eyes are open when you're looking ahead. Everyone's looking for that big job, that new landing spot. And when you do that, you stop looking left and right? You're trying to get the promotion, whatever, and you stop looking around you. And I think that's what y'all got to do. And that's what I think I did as a GA is I looked around me and I looked at the landscape. And you might be at a job right now where there are 20 amazing people, or there may just be one, but look around and see who those people that stand out to you, what do they do well? And what caught your eye about them? What skills do they bring to the table? And then you look for points there, and then you look around. So when I was in tutorial, I was doing a lot of just, I did a lot of the hiring, I did a lot of the data collection, a lot of the processing there. But I was able to realize that there's this hole in how we're approaching math, that the quantity of math appointments was never met with the math tutors that we had. We were always looking around, always looking to get more. And so I saw that opportunity. I was like, well, hey, with my background, what if I started taking on these group appointments? And instead of just doing that and calling it a day, I created our math lab. So our math lab was a dedicated space where I would bring in those groups, small groups, 3, 4, 5 students. And I kind of created this math classroom, this physical math classroom. I used what was already there. And then as I kept going, I got another whiteboard, and I got another set of computers, and I got another little bit of technology, but kind of built that up. And then all of a sudden, this math lab took off. I had 3 group appointments every single night of the week. And so a lot of my time was now dedicated to math lab. And math lab was a word that Austin and other advisors, they started using on the recruitment. They started talking about the math lab and the program and the benefits for it. So now I've got other people hearing about math lab. I've got coaches hearing about the math lab. And so all of a sudden that built up, and I was like, okay, well, I'm at a point now to where I can't do full math lab and my tutorial responsibilities. And so that's when I went to my boss about, hey, can my GA ship just revolve around math and math lab, and you get someone else to be the tutorial GA? And then so when that kicked off, then, I just kept building. I started doing math lab at night and math lab in the morning. And then that kicked off to, hey, let's get this dude on full time as a math specialist. And so, I'm not saying that you can drive content specific positions everywhere, but I promise you, if you look around your building, there is a gap somewhere. I know a gap right now in our building. The gap right now in our building, I think, is with a reading specialist. I would love it if we could get a full-time reading specialist, but I can't go to Walt and say, Walt, I need you to create a full-time reading specialist position. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create that reading program the same way that I did the math lab. So luckily, Carly Faulkner has already created that ROAR program. But what I need now is I need to show how that ROAR program is successful, data-driven reasons why it's successful, to show that, yes, there's a need. Here's how we're responding to the need. Here's how we're improving, and then just keep making that monster bigger and bigger until we've got to throw something at it. We've got to throw a reading GA at it, and then we've got to throw a full-time. And so just keeping your eyes open, not forward, but left and right. See your surrounding space and see where that little niche is that you can start using your skill set to fill it. And then all of a sudden, you found the gap, you filled the gap, and you're like, hey, here I am, like, what else can we do? And if that doesn't exist at your university, then, you go somewhere else. There's not too many math specialists around the country. So I know I'm a rare breed, but man, if you had the experience here and then you went to that university and you could create that new math specialist position, then boom, you just see it, act on it, do it.
Great. Thanks, Brad. My next question is for Dedrick, but afterwards, if anyone has anything to add, just feel free to jump in. The question is the importance of having a mentor as a graduate assistant, and then what did that look like as you moved into a full-time role? Did you keep the same mentor? Did you branch out and get more that were geared towards your career moves, being in a full-time learning specialist role?
That's a great question, Jerrica, and one that I really would say, if you don't hear anything else I say, this is it, which is definitely find you someone that you can confide in and really seek advice and guidance in as you move throughout your career trajectory. I would say from a graduate assistant, I had, and we've already discussed it a little bit with Ken and Walt. Luckily, I had in-house mentor, and Ken really was, he really welcomed the idea of like wanting to be a mentor. And so I really didn't have much of a choice. But I would say, be really strategic in that. And so what I did is I looked at what position I ultimately wanted to do, and ultimately I want to be a athletic director or deputy AD. I say deputy AD because people are really not trying to fire deputy ADs if something goes off or goes crazy. But so I found a guy, and I reached out. His name is Brian Blair. He's the deputy athletic director at Washington U. And I reached out to him. I was like, this guy, he's probably too busy. He's not going to respond. But I went and looked up, did all my research, and then I sent him an email. But in that email, I, showed that I did my research and show, I've been following your career since you was at Rice. I really, appreciate the ways that you handle or your talks or he did, several podcasts. And so that showed that, I just wasn't coming to him to ask. And I think a lot of times upper administration, they get bombarded a lot of times with the mentor ask, but you have to show, that you are going to take it serious. And this is something that you really and seriously want to consider or, want to be a part of. And so one of the things in that initial email, he actually responded. We was able to meet, and then what I came in with was a list of questions, and I was very intentional in the things that I wanted to know. And when he saw that I was very serious, and he was like, man, based off our conversation, based on how serious you are, I want to take you up under my arm, and I want to be your mentor. And so ever since then, we meet on probably like a monthly basis, where, I go in, I email him probably like a week before of just some things that I want to cover. And that gives him an opportunity to also be prepared. And maybe he'll connect me to other people that's in the field. Or I got connected to one of the ADs at Iowa State this past month when I was speaking with him, because we was talking about responding to COVID and different things that his university was doing versus our university was doing in preparation, for summer and, how we handle post-COVID. So I would say with that, just make sure that you are, when you're asking for a mentor and seeking that out, make sure you take that serious, and then also understand the difference between that and a sponsor. And so a sponsor is someone that you're probably going to want to use to help you get your next position, whereas a mentor you're going to use for, different things, for advice, guidance, and things like that. And, sometimes those roles sort of blur over into each other, but make sure you understand the difference between those two. And another thing I would just say in being strategic about that is you don't always have to look at someone in a higher position to necessarily be your mentor. Reach out to those that are your counterparts. And, they may have more experience than you, or a skill set that you may be trying to grow. Brad talked about it a while ago. Like, there's people that's right beside you, your left and your right, that I work with that maybe have a skill set of like attention to detail, or maybe they do public speaking, or maybe they are really good at presentations and things that I want to, build on. So you don't necessarily have to look at someone that is higher up, but more just trying to fill in those gaps, those skills that that you can talk to someone and they can help you in your career development and your career trajectory. So definitely do that. And I think what you'll find is if you're serious about something, if you go intentionally into a lot of the meetings, once you set those up, then they'll invest back into you. And that's ultimately what you want as a mentee, is you want your mentor to invest back in you. You want them to see that you're taking it serious and that you're actually taking the advice that they're giving you. And from there, it really blossoms into opportunities. Like I said, you never know what position may come open. They may hear something, they may send it to you and then put in a good word for you. And so, especially as you are, becoming those budding counselors or budding learning specialists or math specialists, whatever the case may be, student athlete development professionals, just make sure that you are taking advantage of all the opportunities and all of the networking that you possibly can in order to identify and use your mentors and hopefully get a sponsor as well.
Can I chime in there?
Yes.
I think what Dedrick mentioned about mentors and sponsors is extremely important. And also in between the two of those would be an advocate. So I approach mentorship kind of organically. And I feel like with me, my mentors have been in-house. So when I was at LSU, Carol Walker, I considered her a mentor, and still to this day, absolutely is a mentor of mine. Adriana, a mentor, even Kirsten, a mentor. They were the people that I was going to day, helping me, hone those skills, those advising skills, teaching me the nuances of the industry. And now that I am not at LSU and I don't work directly under those individuals, I would consider them advocates. So now Ms. Walker, when I was moving from UVA to here, she knew Derek Cowherd and was willing to pick up the phone and make a call. So while I'm not talking to Ms. Walker every single day, we're checking in and having, if you know Ms. Walker, she can talk. So we're scheduling, 2-hour phone calls and checking in and catching up, but she wasn't my direct mentor. I had somebody at UVA that I considered my mentor at the time. She had become an advocate for me. And so then she was able to pick up the phone, say, hey, Derek, I got somebody who's applying for that position. I know the work that she can do, and she was able to vouch for me. And then the next step up is a sponsor, somebody who's in that power position that can make a call at the highest level and has those hiring abilities and can get you that next job. So I think having a mentor, advocate, and sponsor, it takes time to build those sponsors, as Dedrick said, but those are very important.
Thanks for that, Alexa. Anyone else want to add to that? Brad, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add real quick. If y'all can, ask for the recording. Go back and watch what Dedrick said. For those 6 minutes, man, he was crushing it. I was trying to keep my cool, but I wanted to be like, preach, Dedrick, come on. And I wanted to use that to answer, I think it's Keisha had a question down there in the chat about networking. Don't use networking as just a way to get somebody's business card and be like, ooh, yay, and then put it in your pocket and then think that you can call them 6 years later and say, hey, can you hire me? Be purposeful. I think I want to give a quick plug. The N4A does a great job with mentor and mentee relationships. I'm doing that this year. I have a mentor and I have 2 mentees. And it's just a great way to chat with people in the community. It's so easy to do. And I'm hoping that, when we have in-person conferences again, then I don't have to go meet people at the conference. I've already met them in this way, and then I can introduce myself there and then go. I think the scariest thing when you're a mentee or seeking a mentor is you're scared to reach out. Like Dedrick said, what if this person won't talk to me? Or, you've got to get over that fear. But you've got to put in the work. You've got to put in the research up front to come in with those good questions and then follow through with them. Because the biggest fear for a mentor is this going to be worth my time? Is this person taking it? Because that gentleman at UW that Dedrick was saying, he doesn't have a lot of free time. So it's not free time that he's given Dedrick. He's carving out his own time already and redistributing that to Dedrick. And so, you've got to make it worth it. You've got to put in the work. You've got to be willing to learn, understand, grow, challenge, ask questions, not just the business card, move on to the next one.
Thanks, Brad, for saying that and then grabbing that question. If anyone else has anything to add to the question was, when networking, what were some things you found successful when you were starting out?
I think for me that I didn't really think of when I was like looking for jobs and when I would interview and didn't get the job, or when they would call and say I didn't get it, a lot of them said everyone is really helpful, and a lot of them would said, make sure to keep in contact, make sure to email me. And I think I took that on. So like there was the director at TCU, he called me and said, we're still looking at the position. When I already got the job at Minnesota, he called, and they were just opening the hiring process back up for COVID. And he was just like, make sure to stay in contact. So I think even you can find people for like mentors and stuff like that on a job hunt when you don't get that job, but you can still use them as mentors and for someone to ask for advice or just to like check in and like, or any questions that you may have about the position. Cause it's good to find people from different schools and different things. Cause I've learned here that we all have the same goal, but we do everything so differently sometimes. And but we all have the same goal of helping student athletes become better academically and for graduating. So I think just reaching out when you maybe not get a job, but still keeping in contact with the people on the hiring process or someone that you made that connection with in the when you are on the job search could be beneficial as well too.
And I would just like to add to Keisha's questions. She was asking networking when you things that you found successful starting out. One of the things that I also try to do, especially when I was in my graduate assistantship, is I also try to build those relationships on campus. And I think, a lot of times we sort of often overlook that, but that is huge, especially when you think about different people taking positions. Ultimately, you never know who is going to move to another university and because you've had that relationship, they can help you out in that way. So I would say, people are moving everywhere, people taking different opportunities. So make sure that you are building those cross campus relationships as well. And Ken used to always tell me, because he used to ask me like, hey, you want to be an AD, what do your relationships look like on campus right now? If I ask you, who do you know? Who can you tell me? And that, that really put it in perspective, because he was like, presidents hire ADs, and you need to be well-rounded in your campus relationships in order to, have that part of your network working for you. And so that's something also just be mindful of. If you got time, here we had to check class. I don't know if people, you're probably not doing that now with COVID, but pre-COVID, we had to go around and check classes. That is a prime opportunity to just stop in. One time I was walking and I was checking classes and I saw, oh, okay, this is Assistant Dean of Student Services for our agriculture department. And so I just stopped in and knocked. She was busy at the time, but she was like, hey, come back by. She probably thought I was somebody important, but she was like, come back by, and we set up a meeting. And then, we still have that relationship until this day. So take advantage of also those your campus colleagues, because you never know when down the road when you can use them just for advice, or maybe you collaborate on a project or a presentation, conference. So I'll also, again, what we've been talking about, what Brad said, looking left and right, there's people throughout the campus culture that you can also reach out and help build those relationships as well.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Sure thing. So I would say for me, when starting out, what I found most successful was networking with my peers. So I can't believe, Jerrica, this was 4 years ago when we went to the Women's Leadership Symposium, but met I don't know how many, the cohort, maybe 60 or so women who were in the same shoes that we were in. And now 4 years later, we are all across the country in many different positions: recruiting, academics, student athlete development, marketing, you name it, event management, equipment, you name it. But those are women that at the time, we could relate. We're all trying to find our first full-time jobs. We're all women in the field. We're all navigating the same space. And now we are taking up so many different positions and so many different roles. And there are people that I know at different schools, and we can all come back to that one experience, but it grew my network exponentially. And to this day, if I work with the interns here at OSU, and if one of them applies to a job and I'm like, oh, I went to the symposium with her and I still keep in touch, I can make a call for you. And so I think the value of your peer network when starting out is great. And it's not low risk. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's not as intimidating as building a network of people, of say mentors, your peers. You're in the same position, you're on the same playing field. It's a lot less intimidating to start that way.
Thank you. Yes, if you have the opportunity to participate in the Women's Leader Symposium, please do so. It was an amazing experience. And like she said, we made so many great connections that we still use today. We have about 15 minutes left. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, you're able to. You can put them in the chat or raise your hand. I do have one other question that I would like the panelists to address. And this is just kind of work-life balance. I hate that phrase. I recently follow someone that is into mindfulness, and I saw that they use the word harmony, and I like that better. So if you all could talk about just work-life balance currently, or going from kind of like a part-time being a GA to your first full-time position, and what that looked like and how different techniques or things that you use to create harmony between your job and your personal life.
Jerrica, I feel like this is one of those TikTok videos where I'm like, oh, I've been waiting for this one. You know, this is the one that I like sharing because it works so well for me. And if it doesn't work for you, then just ignore the crazy math dude from LSU. But each day, I really do view myself and my energy like a gas tank. And I'm trying to keep really, really close attention to that gas tank, and make sure that I'm giving the energy I need to work. And then I also still have energy to go home and chase down these two dudes, and give some time to my wife and family as well. And so, you know, Austin mentioned earlier, like putting in that extra work. And I think that's so important at that level, at that graduate assistant level. But as you start moving on to the full-time, you know, you only have so much energy. There's so much gas in the tank. And so with everything that you're doing, I try to think about how much gas will that take from me? So if it's going to grab dinner with some friends or going out or going to grab drinks or doing this, like how much gas is that going to take from my tank? Because I only got so much. And at the end of the day, I got to refill the gas tank. You know, for a lot of people, that's sleep. For some people, it's, you know, working out, it's meditation, it's family, it's religion. But you've got to watch your gas tank all day, every day. Make sure that you have enough to get home and do those things that you need to do at home as well.
Yes, Brad. I agree 100%. The life that we live as GAs and interns is not sustainable, quite honestly. And you realize that in your first full-time position. So something that I do, like a tangible that I do, is you set those boundaries. When I was at UVA and I had a work phone, I would put my work phone away. And I would tell my students, if you need me, you must call me. I will hear it ring and I will answer. But there's really no such thing as an academic emergency overnight. No one's getting kicked out of school overnight. It's not going to happen. And once you come to terms with that, you will be there will be a lot more peace in your life when you leave the office. There's no such thing as an academic emergency. So I set those boundaries. I would put my phone in the other room and not look at it until the next morning. And they knew if they texted me, I'd address it the next day. If they emailed me, I'd address it the next day. If they called me because they had a 9 p.m. tutoring appointment and their tutor's not there, I'll answer it. That's something that, you know, is worth a phone call. So setting those boundaries I don't have a work phone anymore, but most of my students know I'm not gonna open up a text message at 9 p.m. for two reasons. It's not an emergency. And if I open up a text message and I don't address it right then and there, I don't have the notification anymore, and I'm probably gonna forget to address it the next day. So setting those boundaries, however you best see fit, is how I kind of establish that distinction between work and life, which I think is that much more important. I see plenty of you guys in the office. I'm still at home, if you can't tell, but being at home, it's very important now to set those boundaries between work and life.
Great, thank you. Austin, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, everything so far, y'all three, I really appreciate the harmony versus balance, because balance to me speaks to equality. And when you work 5 days and don't work 2, it's going to be really hard to achieve true balance, you know? So I think harmony is a much better way to put that. What Brad and Alexa were saying, it rings so true. I mean, your gas tank, like Brad said, it's a very finite amount in there. And once that's out, again, not to be cliche, but you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you're not going to be able to give your students, your coaches, and more importantly, your family, your friends, what they need from you if you're not taking care of you too. So my variation of what Alexa's saying, there are some days when you get in your full-time position, you're going to have to be there, you know, advising for us. The next 2 weeks, I cannot take a day off, you know, barring a family emergency, I'm going to be in this office for sure. However, after that, when things settle down, I might take a Friday and just take a day. I mean, truly take a day to where I'm not answering emails. I'm not answering texts. If something drastic happens, I will be available. But sometimes take a day off. Don't go to the office and don't work from home. You know, take a true day to yourself to really just recharge. And that way, if I take that Friday and then I kick into my weekend, Saturday, Sunday, when I come back Monday, I'm ready. You know, we're back into it. We're full pedal to the metal. Everything's a go. But sometimes you just need to take, and it might be a Wednesday for you. You know, you may have a Monday and Tuesday where you're just like, I'm not going to make it to Friday. I'm not going to make it. So at that point, take the Wednesday if you can. There may be times where you just have to take a day and say, look, today's for me. Work can have the next few days, work can have next week. I need this day to recharge my gas tank, to put my work phone in the other room, to get some work-life harmony going because we're way out of sync. So sometimes you have to be able to take a day. And in that right position, the people around you will understand. Like I said, there are times where you have to be there regardless. You have to push through. Advising is a good example for me as an advisor, APR stuff. But for the most part, if you need a day, take it, because everyone around you will appreciate having you at full go versus, people can tell when your tank is running low and you want to be sure you take care of yourself most importantly.
Thanks, Austin. I totally agree. Mental health days are super important. We have a few questions in the chat, so I'll read them off if any of the panelists want to jump in here. We have about 10 minutes left. So what advice do you have for those debating pursuing internships versus a full-time position, or a full-time position versus internships?
I'll take this one, or I'll start. Anyone else can chime in, obviously. I would say when you are looking at job postings, go through the description and the duties and the roles and highlight everything that you know you have done and are comfortable doing in a full-time position. If there's anything, if you can do the majority of those, you're qualified and apply. If there's still things that you need to learn, then I would reconsider, and maybe you need a year of an internship. So if you're finding that, yes, I can do, out of the 15 responsibilities listed on this job posting, you're ready for a full-time position. If you're still, you have less than that, or if you're less than half, maybe you need an internship so that you can get more of that hands-on experience. And for Madison, looking to make a career change, kind of a switch there, maybe an internship might be in your best interest as well. I would say it's not too late to get involved. It's not too late to network. You may just need to, turn it in, put it in overdrive and do a little bit extra right now, but it's certainly not too late. I would also ask those you work with what they think you're ready for. So I remember when I was at LSU, I was applying for, it's this time 4 years ago, and I'm applying for things left and right, and people are sending me stuff. And one day I'm talking to Walt, and I was like, yeah, I applied for this internship at Maryland. He's like, Alexa, no, you're ready for a full-time position. Don't go into an internship after this. And, hearing that from Walt Holiday, I was like, okay, I'll trust the process, Austin, and, wait for the right full-time position to come along. So I'd ask those around you what they think may be best, because they know the work that you can do.
I think another thing you have to consider is like your financial situation. And that was always big for me, is I can't afford to do another internship or, continue these GA hours where I'm working dang near like a full-time person, but I'm making GA money and are getting a stipend every month. So I would also just say, it's going to be different for each of you, but like Alexa said, you just, see what you feel, or go through those descriptions, see what it is that you feel like you're comfortable with doing. And then if there's a skill or something that you feel like you still need to work on, look for an opportunity where it's not necessarily full-time. But there's also, and I've seen this, a big move in our in N4A, and they've been coming through my emails, but those assistant positions, so it's like assistant academic coordinator, assistant learning specialist. That way you're getting paid, I think, probably up to 30 hours. I think the reason they do that is so they don't have to do the full benefits and things like that, but you're still getting a pretty decent amount of money. So maybe that is an opportunity for you as well to look at those. But definitely, I feel like, I feel like y'all should be looking at those paid internships if possible. Obviously, there's situations where that garner, maybe you can't get that, but if there's paid internships, I would definitely make sure you be interested in looking at those as well. So just a little tad bit of advice.
Okay, Madison had a question. She's toward the end of her GA position, and she was asking, is it too late to get into networking or getting involved? She's in equipment currently at a D2 level, and she wants to transition in student athlete academic support. I kind of want to say a little something about that. I'm going to let the panelists kind of give you more of a background on it. But I would say if you're able to shadow, get some volunteer internship hours at your current institution in that area, do it. They look for mentors, tutors, anything like that. But if any of the panelists want to go more in depth on that,
Yeah.
please.
Madison, I want to point out, I think Alexa did a masterful job of answering 2 questions at once. And so I know she touched on that a little bit. But just the other thing to kind of add on that too, I want to go back to what I said earlier. I think when people are scared, that when they're seeking mentors, they're kind of scared to go out and put themselves out there. And I think sometimes networking feels that way too. Sometimes you're a little scared to go reach out to strangers and try to meet them. So what I would challenge you is 2 things, Madison. Think about yourself. How well are you networking at the school you're at right now? How big is your web at your own school? And if it's not very big, then start networking with those people because you know them. It's not scary. So you practice the skills with not scary people so that when you go reach out to the scary people, you've already improved your skills. So look at your current environment, assess how you're doing and what you need to do better and how you need to put yourself out there, then reach out to the strangers and start growing that web.
Madison, may I ask what school you're currently with?
I'm currently with Valdosta State University in Southern Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you guys for all of your advice and answering to my question. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So if any of the panelists have any ending words, we're going to go ahead and close out. If any other questions, just feel free to chime in. We'll just kind of leave it open until 1:15.
The one thing I wanted to be sure I said on here, going into your job search process, figure out what your non-negotiables are. What are the things at a job you're going to take that you either A, have to have, or B, will not tolerate? Figure out what those are. And in your interview process is where you'll get those answers. So be very mindful. Remember, they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them too, right? So be sure you understand what your non-negotiables are. A good piece of advice in this field is always not to limit yourself, especially geographically. But for me, that happened to be my non-negotiable. It's not ideal. I don't encourage it, but that was my non-negotiable. I was prepared to make sacrifices with regards to salary, with regards to sports I worked. I might would have even got out of athletics if I'd had to, because I knew where I wanted to be. That was my non-negotiable. And again, the process worked for me and I found something within the area I wanted to be. But know what your non-negotiable is. If you're not going to work in a place that is, for whatever reason, you want a big school, if that is something you have to have, I would probably choose a little more carefully than that. That was kind of a bad example on my part, but know what your non-negotiables are and do not waver on those is the moral of that poor example.
Piggybacking off of Austin, with the job search, as Austin said earlier, trust the process. I'm trying to find the note in my phone that has every school that I applied to. I only ended up with one of these jobs, obviously, and I think the running list was 19 applications before I found my first full-time position. I know some people who keep it in an Excel spreadsheet, but I always pull this up to remind, the interns that I work with, like, it's a process. Be patient, the right job will come along.
Oh,
Go ahead.
was that Macy? Oh, okay. I would just say it was sort of piggybacking off of Alexa. I know we haven't used that phrase the whole time, so I was trying to stay away from it.
You have to use piggybacking in a Zoom call. You have to.
But to piggyback off of everyone, they had great responses. But I'll also just say embrace the failure, and that's something that really I had a hard time understanding, especially when you're trying to prove to everyone that you can do the job, prove to everyone that you're ready for your first gig, or prove to everyone that you're ready for your next move or next opportunity. Embrace the failure. Embrace those things that you can really learn from and take with you. And I would argue that it might be in the failure that you actually learn the most. It's going to be in the failure that you grow the most. And so embrace that. And don't be afraid to lean on people. I have I would say I have probably the greatest, coworkers. I think, that's just my personal opinion. I have Brad right here to my left. I have Molly Ann to my right. I can go to them. Hey, I'm having a bad day, or I'm on a vent about something. They in the fight with me, and so make sure that you lean on them. And also the importance. I'm just going to put on my little counselor hat. The importance of positive self-talk. So in that process, a lot of times I used to get so frustrated with things, and I get so just upset something wouldn't go my way or something like that. Just make sure that you're cognizant of how you're feeling, your gut feeling, your intuition. All of those things are so important, because that's going to ultimately also lead you in your career trajectory as well. When you feel something bubbling, or when you feel something, hey, this is not right, or hey, maybe your spirit or whatever is not, jiving right with whatever you are, maybe it's time for a move. Maybe it's time to look at a different opportunity. Maybe it's time to seek out your mentors or your sponsors and say like, hey, this is what's going on, and get that advice and get that guidance. And so I'll put my contact info in the chat, just because I felt like we've all sort of learned and become more, intimate together in this space. So if you all are having any questions, or just need some advice, or want to vent at any time, please reach out, do that. I would love to help in any way that I can.
Thanks, Dedrick. So I'll allow anyone to enter that information to the chat, and then we'll close out here.
Can everyone take a quick second and submit the session evaluation? I will share my screen real quick so you guys can scan the QR code.
And a big shout out to the folks at LSU. I know everything is different and challenging right now, so I really appreciate the fact that y'all are still putting this together in these different times. It looks different than it has in the past, but y'all are still doing an awesome job. I appreciate that. Y'all are all rock stars from current and past. It was great to see everybody again. It was a real pleasure, and I appreciate y'all putting this together for sure.
Thanks, Austin, for joining us and saying yes.
Did everyone get the code?
All right, thank you all for joining. We'll go ahead and close out. If you weren't able to get the information out of the chat, just let us know. You can email accesssummit@lsu.edu, and we'll relay the information. Have a good rest of the conference.
Thank you all so much.